Yes. 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 What do you do when a crazy person on the stage keeps saying yes? Yes. 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 You can change your life by just saying yes to every question you get in a day. Do you want cheese on that? Extra cheese? Yes. Do you want to go out with me? Yes. A rerun of a show from the 70s that you don't even know what it is. Will you watch this all day? Yes. Say yes. Things change when you say yes. And we are very fortunate living today, having been born at this time, about how wonderful it is to say yes to all of the forms of creativity that we have accessible to us. 50 years ago, 100 years ago, if you were someone who was interested in ideas, interested in how you make things, how you make books or plays or movies or start companies, you'd have to work really hard to get information from people who've actually done these things about how to do them. And today we are blessed by an abundance of good material that you can find instantly from the people who make things about how they do what they do. It's an amazing thing. I study history and how ideas get turned into things, and I can tell you sincerely, with passionate emphasis and full belief, that you are living at a great time to be someone who thinks about making stuff. Probably the best time in history. Fantastic time. There's events like this one and others that you know of that just bring you person after person who's doing something interesting, and they're talking about how they did it, and you can learn from that and get energized from it and feel passion from it. You get a spark of their own energy and put that inside you and hold on to it and feel energized. Yes, that's cool. Yes, that's amazing. Yes, that's a great story. But there's a problem with it. There's a flaw in our consumption of information about ideas. And that flaw is inherent in consumption itself. And that by the act of consuming something that someone else made, you are passive. And you're listening to a story being told by someone else. And stories have flaws too. The stories that become popular, the stories we like to hear, those are stories that are easy to tell. They make us feel good. They're neat and orderly in a certain narrative arc kind of way. And reality, the real experience of making, doesn't necessarily fit into those structures. But the ones that we're exposed to, the ones that even successful creators get rewarded for telling, are the ones that comfort us. So we are awash in a sea of all these great stories, and we feel empowered by it. Yes, I can make a book too. Yes, I can start a company too. Yes, I can make an album too. And then we go off with that charged energy we get from those kinds of experiences. We take that with us and we sit down. We have an idea that we came up with on our own. And we're like, I can do that. I can make this thing. And you start working. And you start writing a first draft of a novel or a screenplay, or you start writing the business plan for a company. Maybe you want to make an album or start a band or whatever it is. It doesn't really matter what it is, but to you it's important, and you've been energized, and you start going. You start going, and that energy's helping you. You're thriving. You got the right music on. Maybe you have whatever your caffeine or whatever your intoxicant of choice for creating is, and you're rolling along, and it's great for the first hour, the first day, maybe the first week. And then all of a sudden, you're looking at it, and it's just not very good. This idea that you had in your mind, this charged idea, what you have in front of you is a shell of that. And it feels bad. It feels, no, this is hard. I don't know what to do next. The quality of that idea, which I still have in my head in all of its perfection, I look at this and this is trash. This is an embarrassment. This makes me feel bad. And then we think of all the things we've consumed, all the stories we've heard by people who were successful, and we compare what we're making in the present, and we feel bad. And we usually do two things. We abandon it and give up, or we race back to consuming again and figure the problem must be something we haven't consumed yet. There must be some other story we need to hear, some other passionate telling of a creator who made a work we admire. There's some other thing we need to consume and bring in to get us through that moment. But the flaw that I want you all to remember and notice in all these stories is every behind-the-scenes story, every blog post from a musician about the album they just made that's now a critical success. All of those stories are told retrospectively. They're telling a story where they know the outcome. They know that it went well. They know that they're on the TV show or they're getting interviewed by some reporter. They know that. And as much as they may talk about the drama, the sincere drama they faced in that moment of despair, when they're actually doing the work of creation and they're struggling, when they're telling you the story so that you can hear it, they know the outcome. And when you are sitting down and you're writing the draft, you're making the sketch, you're riffing on your guitar, whatever your form is, you don't know what's going to happen next. And you're the one who has the idea. No one can share with you the quality, the resonance that that idea has. It's only you. And you're alone in that moment. So part of what I do, I write books and I make all different kinds of things, but I'm a student of creation. I love to read quality stories about what those moments are actually like. I seek out stories and documentation from creators where the documentation was made in the moment, that day, that week, before they knew it was going to happen. And I use that because that's what charges me when I'm in my dark moment, when I'm struggling with a draft or an essay or a book or a novel. I want to know that. What did Hemingway do when he was here? What did Van Gogh do when he was here? Not what did he do when he won the award, what did he do here? There aren't many good examples of these things. There are a few, but they're very hard to find. Most creators are very shy about those moments. They're embarrassed by them. They don't want to share those moments because we have this mythology that creators never face those moments, that they're so talented that they can use their talent to drive through everything, which is really a bunch of baloney. One great story I want to share with you, this is a movie that you can get. It's available for free. It's not very popular, though. It's a film called The Mystery of Picasso. Now, Picasso really is a worthwhile household name in creative work. His career spanned decades, and it wasn't just decades of him doing the same kind of work again and again and again. He came up with new forms of media. He challenged himself again and again and again, and continually saw his passion to put himself in those moments repeatedly. That's what he was meant to do. And midway through his career, he was already very famous. He has nothing to prove. He decided he was going to make a film with a French filmmaker to document him actually working. And not in the behind the scenes, they're going to show like a moment of stress and play dramatic music and then presto, show the finished painting. No, they wanted to do much better than that. They wanted to capture the reality of creation. So they set up a special studio where they had a camera over his shoulder, sort of like Bob Ross, over his shoulder. And then they had another camera, the canvas that came with a special material for the canvas so they could put a camera behind the canvas so you could see the paint as it was applied. They came up with all these very inventive ways to capture the reality. And they made this film called The Mystery of Picasso. Now, this is a film that's been known about for decades now, not very popular. It's not popular because, by all of our standards of consumption, it's really boring. You sit down and watch Picasso, yeah, Cubism, woohoo, I'm going to watch Picasso. He's going to throw epiphanies everywhere, have magic moment after magic moment. And you sit and you watch, and you're excited at first. They're speaking French, but there's subtitles, so you're okay. And then he's painting, and he's working, and he's working. Little by little, you're thinking, where are the special effects? Like, where's the jump cut going to be? When is his estranged mistress going to show up and have a fight? You're expecting there to be all of this other drama. But the drama is him and his work. And the key word is work. How did Picasso do all these things? He sat there and he worked. All the other stuff, all the other things, creative methods and different tactics to use, it was him at a canvas working. That's probably the best possible lesson anyone interested in making stuff can learn. Is that no matter what you do, no matter how inspired you are, no matter what thing or epiphany you have, magic moment, idea, brilliance you have, talent you have, you're going to have to sit there and do the work. And that's the real challenge. How will you decide in those moments when you're not sure what to do, when you're not sure what the right answer is, how will you decide you're going to continue anyway? And that's why I want to talk about your soul. Now, I don't mean soul necessarily in a spiritual sense, but it's okay if that's what that word means to you, because there's an overlapping Venn diagram of what I mean and what you may mean. And by your soul, I mean the voice you have inside yourself. The little voice that you have that you hear now and then. You probably had that voice much stronger in your head when you were a child. If you watch children when it comes to creative work, when you watch a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old, they'll come up with an idea. a completely ridiculous but maybe brilliant idea that they're going to decide that your pet dog Rover is going to be the King of France today. And they'll go figure out, how do we make him look at the King of France today? He'll go and do that. And then he'll decide he wants to play war. Whatever that voice is, he's going to go and commit himself to following that thing. That's what I mean by your soul, this voice that's inside of you. And as we get older, that voice gets quieter and quieter because we want to fit into the adult world. We want to fit into our professors and our teachers. We want to fit in with our bosses and our coworkers and our friends and our spouses and our parents. They all have these ideas for what's good and what's right that we care about because we care about them and we want to fit in. And so we'll quiet that inner voice. We stifle it and we hear it less and less. And then we wonder why we end up in careers that don't mean very much to us. Or we'll do good work that gets validated and earns us money but doesn't mean very much to us. And that's because we've forgotten to hear that voice. Now, the problem is that voice is very quiet. It doesn't work in the same way that all the loud, noisy consumption, it's not the same way. It's not going to be as loud as listening to a lecture. It's not going to be as loud as the voice you hear when you read a book. It's not going to be that loud. It's going to be inside you. But if you're quiet, you find places when you're quiet. And I bet you all have moments at work or in school when you're bored out of your mind listening to some stupid professor or your boss drone on and on. Your mind wanders. You think of ideas for things. We all do. We all do. That's your little voice. And sometimes those ideas are good. You realize you can come up with a better plan than the thing you're hearing. Sometimes those ideas are crazy, like I said before. You should go eat a dozen cheeseburgers today. You should get extra cheese. Sometimes it says things that are strange, but that voice is yours. And the way that voice gets stronger, the way that voice becomes an asset for you, the way that little fire, it's a little fire voice, it's a little bit of kindling, the way it becomes a powerhouse is by you listening to it. It's your voice, so only you can listen to it. No one else hears it, just you. So you have to listen. Now, you don't have to do what it says, especially if it says that you should dress funny or you should, go on a serial killing rampage or something. If it says those things, you should seek help. But it probably won't say those things. It'll probably say things like, you should write a book about that. The song you're listening to, you could make a better one. Little things that you hear that you go, yeah, I could, and then you dismiss and never come back to again. You have to listen to that voice. And you don't have to do very much either. You don't have to do what it says. You have to listen to it. You have to find a place where you can put those little things you hear down. A safe place that no one's ever going to see. It doesn't have to be good what that voice says, but it has to be heard. It has to be heard by you. And when you write it down, that voice is going to get a little bit louder next time. It'll be a little bit more articulate in what it's telling you. And the form may not be language. It may be a drawing you should make, or an image, or a movie, or a song, or a sound. Find a way to capture it. The simplest way, of course, is just to write it down, but whatever media makes you comfortable, crayons, magic, doesn't matter as long as you're listening to that voice. And when you listen, the next day it'll get louder, and it'll get louder again, it'll get louder again, and soon some of these suggestions that you're hearing from yourself, from your soul, from your sense of taste, from your passion for all the things that matter to you, some of those things will formulate into projects, into things you can actually do. Not all of them. Some will be too expensive. Some will be too elaborate or too scary for you. But some will be things you can manifest in the world. And you'll sit down and you'll start to make them. And when you do start to make them, and you go along and you reach a roadblock, you're stuck, you don't know what comes next in the plot, you're afraid you're going to ruin the painting if you add more to it. The thing that will get you through that is not the inspiration you get from other people. It's not the things you hear, not the books on creativity. It's not any of that stuff. It's going to be your own voice telling you, keep going. Do it anyway. So what if it doesn't work out? So what if when you finish the thing, you don't want to work on it again? So what? Do it anyway. If you're passionate about this idea, if your soul finds this interesting, you have to do it, no matter what anyone else says. And that's the mystery of Picasso. That's the mystery of any of these people who you aspire to be like or who inspire you, is they've learned how to listen to themselves, independent of what other people think. They'll do the project anyway. And if they're lucky, and if you're lucky, in following that pursuit, you pick up the crafts and the skills and the abilities to match your passion. And that's when you make work that's great, that people come along and want to hear the behind-the-scenes story of. So yes, say yes to your own voice. No one else can do that for you. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you.